Okay, I will call the meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome to the October 3rd, 2025 Special City Council meeting. I'll ask everyone to please rise for the Canadian National Anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Okay, you can be seated. Okay, we acknowledge that we are on traditional lands of the Treaty 4 territory, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta and Manitoba, the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. The City of Regina owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcomed here and call Regina home. Some members of City Council and City Administration may be attending the meeting today through video conferencing. I'd like to remind those who are attending through video conferencing of the following. Please ensure that your video camera and microphone are turned off, and when speaking, remember to unmute your microphone and enable your video camera. Some delegations may be attending the meeting today by teleconference to address City Council on various items of the agenda, which there is only one. Could I have someone move a motion to approve the agenda at the call of the chair with an adjustment to add the registered list of delegations? Councillor Flores, and a seconder, Councillor Burton. Call the question. Any opposed? And carried. Okay, I'll take this opportunity to provide a high-level overview again for everybody watching of how the meeting will proceed today. Administration will give a presentation on item CM 25-17, 2026 and 2027 preliminary service forecast, utility, operating, and capital. Once the presentation is complete, the registered list of delegations will address City Council and members will be permitted to ask the delegations questions they may have for them. Council will then move the report to the floor and council members will be permitted their 5-minute speaking time to debate and ask questions of administration respecting the presentation and related report. The matter on the meeting agenda today is an informational report, providing council with the current budget service level forecasting information. I would like to remind members of council that the deliberations today provide members of council with the opportunity to ask administration questions and put forward a referral motion for additional information only in the event administration indicate they are unable to provide a response to a question posed to them at the meeting today, and that any amendments members may wish to bring forward in relation to the 2026 budget deliberations be brought forward in December during the consideration of the proposed 2026 budget. If a referral motion is brought forward at this meeting today directing administration to report back on additional information that administration requires additional time to provide an answer, the clerk will put the referral on the screen and add the requested additional information as a line item to the motion to begin a running list. This will provide other members to add the opportunity for other members to add additional items to the referral motion if they wish. Once all members have spoken and the debate is closed, the vote on the referral motion will be called. A member may request to separate the vote between the list of items on the referral motion. If the referral motion is carried, administration would prepare a supplemental report in response to the referral motion, and the report would be published on the same meeting agenda as the proposed 2026 budget report in November. Do any members of council have any question respecting the process today? Okay, seeing none, we will begin with the report from administration respecting item CM 25-17, 2026-2027 preliminary service forecast, utility operating and capital. And I'll ask Darren Anderson, Chief Financial Officer, to introduce the presentation and report.
And welcome everyone to the fifth and final session of our special city council meetings, going through our forecasted budget reports for 26 and 27. Today, as the mayor mentioned, is focused on the utility side of our operations, both operating and capital. Before I turn it over to my colleague, Mr. May, to go through a quick presentation of a high-level overview, I did want to speak briefly around the fact that our utility side of the business works like a base tax. So I know we've had some conversations when we talk about the mill rate of having a base tax. Really, this is a base tax. Everybody pays the same rate on their usage of utilities, regardless of the value, the assessed value of their home. It also allows the city to tax different organizations in a different way. So an important tool in our tool box for making sure that we recover the costs associated. So with that, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Mr. May, who will run through a high-level overview of the utility.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Baczynski. As I said, here's a high-level overview of the utility. First up, the administration uses a 25-year financial model for the utility, which is used in determining annual utility rate increases. Utility modeling and planning for long-term financial sustainability is an iterative and collaborative process that requires continual reviews and improvements. The capital investment planning process uses a multi-criteria prioritization tool, as well as master plans have helped the city improve its approach to assessing needs and projecting costs. The 2026 forecasts are from the utility model and forecast the operating and capital expenditures and revenues required to maintain existing services, as well as incorporate the cost of any previous city council direction. This includes allocations for annual inflation and growth implications. So, a quick overview: the utility operates on a full cost recovery user pay basis through the utilities fees charged to the customer. Users are billed monthly and charges are based on a fixed daily base rate plus a rate per volume of consumption or usage, which provides an incentive to conserve a valuable resource. On the operations side, the utility rates support four key operating services: water supply and distribution, which is covered in Appendix B; wastewater collection and treatment, which is covered in Appendix C to the report; stormwater collection and flood protection, which is covered by Appendix D to the report; customer service and administration, including utility billing, which is covered by Appendix E; enabling services is Appendices F and G. The cost of utility operations are forecasted to be $205.5 million in 2026 and $227.6 million in 2027. The utility operates on the premise that the user pays for the service rather than having the cost borne by the property owner. Capital, which is covered by Appendices H and I, utility rates are also support capital investments. The utility is responsible for diverse infrastructure, including water mains, storage reservoirs, pumping stations, building service connections, a wastewater treatment plant, wastewater mains, and stormwater sewers, as well as stormwater channels and creeks. The City of Regina is also a joint owner of the Buffalo Pound Water Treatment Plant with the City of Moose Jaw, which provides the city's drinking water. The 5-year utility capital plan anticipates investments of $115.17 million in 2026 and $111.13 million in 2027. And as you can see on the screen, the funding for those capital investments is laid out there. A 1% increase in utility rates is equivalent to $1.86 million in 2026. To pay for the cost of operations and to fund the projected capital needs from 2026 to 2030, It is estimated that a utility rate increase of 6% is required for both 2026 and 2027. In addition, 2026 is the second year of a 5-year dedicated utility rate increase of 1.82% for the purpose of covering an identified shortfall in development charges. And I have the reference to the council decision there on the screen for you. As a result, a 7.82% increase in utility rates is forecast for 2026. For context, in May of 2025, Saskatoon forecasted that their utility rate increase would be 5% in 2026 and 2027. Similarly, a 7.82% increase in utility rates is forecast for 2027. However, this assumes that the city will receive approval for a grant of $48.9 million from the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund, or CHIF, in 2027 in support of the Northwest Regional Wastewater Lift Station. If the city does not receive this CHIF grant, then it would borrow the $48.9 million to continue this project. The annual principal and interest payment on that debt is estimated to be $4.4 million, which would require an additional utility rate increase of 2.2%. So consequently, the 2027 utility rate increase could be as high as 10.2% if the city does not receive CHIF funding and chooses to borrow to make up the shortfall. On this slide, we are showing the two green lines. The top green line represents the recommended maximum balance in the utility reserve. The bottom green line represents the minimum recommended balance in the utility reserve. The orange bar is the forecasted balance in the utility reserve, and the blue bar is the forecasted utility reserve supported capital investments for those years. So what we're showing here is that with the potential rate increases that I've described, we're able to make the capital investments that we feel we need to make while keeping the utility reserve at slightly above or near its minimum balance over the next 5 years. The utility is a self-funded service, and so there are essentially three levers that we can pull to make a meaningful impact. It's either we can go through rate increases, we can defer or reduce capital plans and programs, which comes with risks, or we can take out debt, which comes with trade-offs and will impact the city's ability to advance other projects. And finally, for the question and answer portion of today's meeting, we have several members of administration here to answer questions. Appendix A is an overview, which I hope we've covered with this slide deck. Appendices B, C, and D are utility operating services for water, wastewater, and stormwater. And we have Mr. Doney and Carolyn Kaleem, Director of Water, Waste, and Environment, and their staff available to answer questions. Appendix E, utility billing. We have Ms. Tanya Mills, Director of Assessment and Property Revenue Services, to answer any questions you might have on that service. Appendix F is corporate transactions, and questions can be directed to myself or members of my team, Sheena Carrick and Mr. Trevor Black. Appendix G is enabling services. The utility is supported by several city departments, including Planning and Development Services, represented by Ms. Autumn Dawson, and Sustainable Infrastructure, represented by Karen Sagan. Appendix H and I covers the forecasted 5-year capital plan, and most of the folks already mentioned can provide additional insight on those programs and projects. I'll turn it over to Mr. Anderson for any closing comments he may have.
Thank you, Mr. May. Before we go to delegates here, I'd just like to thank administration, all of them in the room here today, for a lot of work on this. This is our 5th meeting, and it's been quite a month, but I just wanted to make sure I took the opportunity. There's a lot of work that's gone into this new package, and hopefully it's been useful to council and to the public. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Mayor.
Thank you, and I'll echo that sentiment. Thank you for all the work that everybody in administration has done to enable this very transparent and comprehensive process for us. Okay, we'll go to our delegations. So first, I'd like to call upon Delegation DE 25-198, Jim Elliott. Good afternoon, Mr. Elliott. I'll give you the usual preamble. I'll get you to introduce yourself for the record, the organization you're representing, if any, today, the city that you reside in. You have 5 minutes to address council, after which you can respond to any questions that we have for you. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. My name is Jim Elliott, and I'm here. I live in Regina, and I'm here on my own behalf. I guess in a general sense, I think you've heard a number of comments that I put into my brief before. I don't necessarily need to repeat those. I think those are both well known as well as available to you. I guess the concern that I have, and again, it comes back to the question around sustainability. Albeit that this is a utility and its intent is to maintain and do everything within the budget that it does, I don't believe that we are going in that direction. And in fact, the city is straining this operation more significantly, and I realize that the bar graph that you saw means that you're at least maintaining some level of reserve. I think you are extending yourself well beyond the capacity of the city going forward, and so I in some respects I don't see your taxes or your utility bills either stabilizing or not continuing to go up, which I guess will generally strain most households. The other aspect of this, which I alluded to in my presentation, is the aspect of incentives to reduce the strain on the system. Right now, there are probably many residents in the city that don't create stormwater, and yet we're being charged a stormwater levy. Similar to other services the city has, we're being charged for things that we don't actually receive. And I think if you're going to be doing this on a long-term basis, you need to start to begin to provide those incentives to encourage people to both not create problems, but also not have their utilities go up. I guess the last part of this, which again, I think needs to be said, is that a lot of the questions that I've presented both in this report but also in previous reports, I've yet to get an answer from. And albeit that this may be of value to the council, I'm not sure whether it necessarily provides that much input or that much value to the citizens of the city. They will probably only get the few tidbits of information, such as the suggestions that we may be going to an 8 or 10% increase in water bills, or in the cases of the overall operations, 14 to 15%. That's probably about as much as what most people would have seen. And as you can tell from the questions and delegation list that you've had to this meeting and others, there isn't necessarily a lot of ability for citizens to ask questions or get input. Now maybe that will come, but if this was an intent to inform the public, I don't believe it has done that. I guess that's probably as much as I'll say at this point, but I pointed out a number of questions that I think need to be answered, and now maybe this time they'll get answered, but I'll leave it at that, and if you have any questions.
Sure. Yeah, I do see some questions for you. So thanks for your presentation. Councillor Stickley, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Hi, Jim. Welcome. Thank you for your presentation. Did you participate in the tax and affordability engagement that the city did in 2021?
Yes, I did, yeah.
What do you remember from that?
Yeah. More or less that, you know, things are likely to go up, or that, you know, like I said, it's been a while, so.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Things were likely to go up, you said?
Well, that's one, you know, perception that at least I saw within some of that stuff. Although I can't immediately recall all that was part of that that process, but.
Yeah, there were 17 questions. I just looked it up. I didn't know about it because it was done in 2021. But it's available on openregina.ca. I'm going to have some questions of administration for it afterwards. I was just wondering if you remember anything that stuck out there, because there were so many questions. 17 of them, I think.
I'll go back and look at that again, just to refresh my memory in that respect. So.
No further questions.
Thank you. And I don't see any further questions, Mr. Elliott, so thanks for your presentation today. You can return to the gallery. Okay, next I'd like to call upon Delegation DE 25-199, Cecile Moulin. Whichever seat you'd like. Yeah, I can turn on the mic on anyone, which one, so whichever you'd like to sit at. And then once you're seated, I'll get you to introduce yourself for the record, the organization you're representing, if any, what city or town you reside in. You'll have 5 minutes to address City Council, after which you will have the opportunity to respond to any questions Council may have for you. You can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm Cecile Moulin, and I'm from Regina, Saskatchewan. And I'm not representing anyone, just me. I have a biochemistry degree, in case anyone wants to know what background I have. Okay, I would like you to remove the fluoride project from the budget, because it is unnecessary. In June 2023, Health Canada, Canada's public health agency, and the FedProv Committee on Drinking Water hosted the expert panel meeting on the health effects of fluoride in drinking water summary report in order to provide expert recommendations to Health Canada with respect to both dental fluorosis and neurocognitive adverse health effects to the most vulnerable populations. This invited expert panel were all from American universities: Harvard, Cincinnati, Iowa, Brown at Rhode Island, except there was one person there from the World Health Organization. I don't know if that person's from Canada. They were to summarize the American 2022 NTP draft report, National Toxicology Report, and also the Canadian RSI review, Risk Scientists International on Fluoride, which Health Canada had commissioned and paid for. Concerning the neurocognitive effects, the panel failed to reach the required consensus to determine what the numbers for both the point of departure and the uncertainty factor should be. In my delegation, I also sent you all the links that you could look at the report. Some important points. They did, however, reach a consensus that an uncertainty factor has to be applied. They left it up to Health Canada to decide what it should be. Normally, for toxic chemicals like arsenic, mercury, lead, and fluoride, research scientists state that the point of departure, that's actually the level of where they've determined the harm is, has to be divided by at least 10 in order to calculate the largest allowable exposure level for the public. Risk Scientists International, who was consulting for the meeting, acknowledged that the actual point of departure for neurocognitive effects is likely lower than for fluorosis. They were able to decide fluorosis. So everyone thinks that what was determined for the fluorosis in that report was for cognitive problems. It was not. It wasn't finished. And the report also noted that the panel did not address the benefits of fluoride. Therefore, it was assumed that the benefits would justify the risks. This illustrates that the fluoride questions, like questions about other toxic chemicals, is typically studied by research scientists from across the Western world and sometimes further. In fact, the SAS College of Dental Surgeons was asked for information about fluoride under Freedom of Information, which they denied to answer. They said they don't have to do it. But anyway, they couldn't help themselves. They did say that they followed the American Dental Association, the Canadian Dental Association, and Health Canada. They're all the same. One follows the other. Therefore, the idea that fluoridation risks and benefits will only be considered from local experts is going to exclude the people who actually have the information we need. The most prominent Canadian research scientist who also teaches public health is Dr. Bruce Lanphier, who guided the team research that resulted in the CDC regulating lead. After that, Canada followed. Bruce Lanphier, MD, MPH, is a clinical scientist and a physician certified in public health and preventative medicine with a master's degree in public health. He's an investigator at BC Children's Hospital and a professor of health sciences at Health Fraser University in Burnaby, BC. He studied the impact of toxic chemicals, including lead and pesticides, on children's brain development for over 20 years.
We have about 30 seconds left.
Okay. Sorry, I lost where I was. I had timed this, so I'm shocked that I don't have enough time. And you guys, we all need this information so that a proper decision is made on this. Like the budget needs to take that away. Otherwise, this is an ongoing problem for the city because we know of the risks. So I did also provide you with my delegation for information so that you could find Dr. Bruce Lanphier's delegation that he sent in for May 2nd. Also, his curriculum vitae, which is 40 pages long, which has all his 40 decades of toxicology research. The other thing I got to say is that the people that we hope to help, I think, are from the low-income communities, but the low-income communities are the ones that get the most harm from fluoridation. There's an ethical question here that you're not going to get around. It doesn't matter what you do.
Okay.
I'm done.
Thank you for your presentation. I'll see if there's any questions. I see Councillor Zakidniak online. Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, Cecile. I just wanted to ask if you were aware that there actually has been a reconsideration motion in relation to fluoride this term, and that reconsideration motion failed. So it has been considered again by this council and has failed, you know, this question of fluoride.
It hasn't been reconsidered for the budget. If it has to be reconsidered that way, I do not know, of course.
Right. Okay, but the question of should we add fluoride to the water was already considered again by this council, and that motion failed. So I just wanted to give you that update. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Rasevich, go ahead.
Through the chair, as Councillor Zakidniak said, I guess we as council deliberated on it, but again, we're not medical experts. I guess my question is, I've read Health Canada on fluoride. I just wondered the way you interpret what Health Canada says on their website, because the way I interpret, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Councillor, it's the time for you to comment on your interpretation would be when you have your time with admin. This is
okay.
Just for
what is your
questions for
interpretation?
delegations.
What Health Canada says?
Sorry, what do you mean what they said?
What they say about fluoride?
Well, I was talking about the review they actually did that was supposed to give us all some direction. What I'm saying is that they didn't finish the review. They left it up in the air.
Yeah, so they didn't say yes or no.
They didn't say that it definitely is, the report that they made definitely resulted in there's significant harm to developing brains.
And you would like to see a pause? It's we at least put a pause on this.
Well, why would we start something that we don't know if it's ever going to be found safe? Like we've been very suspicious since 2006. This has gone on for 20 years, that the real scientists, Bruce Lanphier and the rest of them who are doing the research on toxic chemicals, have been going around and around in circles doing more and more and more studies. And so the studies have been getting more and more and more rigorous.
Right.
And it's actually the same information that the trial judge used in the United States, who ruled that, oh yeah, you've got to apply that safety factor. When he said you have to regulate it, that's what he was talking about. He was talking about you've got to take the exposure level and you have to apply a safety factor to it, which is for toxic chemicals. So 10. So the highest amount of fluoride that's allowed in the water, according to scientific standards, is 0.15, not 0.70.
I guess one more question. Do you think we should be deciding this here?
No.
No.
I don't think you have a voting thing for it here, but we shouldn't be starting to put this plant together, because if you read the rest of my delegation, you'll find that I also sent you Dr. Bruce Lanphier's latest article, in which he pointed out that public health authorities are normally about 20 years behind everybody else, and that over the last few decades that it has been the courts that have been deciding. And I think that this is also going to end up there unless we just stop it on this level.
Well, thank you for coming, and hopefully we can save the city. It'll be more than $2 million.
Yeah,
Hopefully we
I
can
know.
save the city some money, but thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any further questions, so thank you for your presentation today, and you can return to the gallery.
Thanks for the opportunity to do it.
Thank you. Okay, we will now consider item CM 25-17, 2026-27 preliminary service forecast, utility, operating, and capital. Can I have someone move the report? I see Councillor Zakidniak. Do you want to move the report? I see you online there. Oh, well, we will
Sorry,
do.
yes.
I was advised it should be someone present in the room here to move, so we'll do that, and then I'll come to you first for questions after the mover, just because I did see your hand up there. So I'll get Councillor Bezo to move the report. Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Sicklys. And Councillor Bezo, you can go ahead with your questions on the report.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair. Thank you for the report. Very well put together. I'm going to talk a couple things. One on the project side of the equation, one on the financing side of the equation. First question on the financing side of the equation. We put together a 25-year projection. We're barely meeting any baseline for the minimal reserve. In your future projections, what will it look like if we don't actually raise those reserves higher now versus in a few years or the next couple budget cycles?
Through the chair, thanks for the question, Councillor. The model does go out 25 years. We do have some other significant capital investments that on that side of the business that are out in 2031, et cetera, that will need funding. So I would recommend that we don't, roll back funding. It would definitely put that reserve in danger. We're trying to strike a balance here of keeping above the minimum, but also be aware that there's a lot of aging infrastructure in the city that needs to be replaced. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, I'm more averse to the risk profile. When I see we're at the minimum reserves, I'm getting very nervous. We have one issue. We chew through that reserve really quick and we're going to a loan. So what would we need to do in order to actually bolster the investment into the reserve for the utility so we actually would be somewhere in the mid-range or the median range of that reserve?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, so yeah, the two levers we can pull there, one would be increasing the utility rate, so higher than what has been put forth right now. The other would be to reduce the investment into capital, so slow down the investment into what we've put forward in the plan. And then that would bring the reserve up. Again, that's a short-term fix, because long-term, we're just pushing out the requirement.
Yeah, long-term, through the chair, long-term or delaying or pushing things back of critical infrastructure just means more spend down the road, which leads into the next question. Very well put together project list on the capital side of the equation. I don't see a priority on the project list. All I see is a project list over the next 5 years. Is there a way we can get a definition of what the critical projects are? The critical meaning we're at imminent failure or will be in a failure rate, you know, based upon testing or other known reliability pieces?
Mr. Doney, go ahead.
Through the chair. So as mentioned, we've got the 25-year utility plan that's supported by the utility capital plan. And so the way we really look at the utility capital plan is risk management. And so that's the probability and the consequence of something happening. Typically, we're looking at large diameter pipes having the highest consequence of a failure. And so we want to make sure that doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, we've got a mitigation plan in place. So when you look through the project list, basically we're looking to maintain level of service, enhance level of service, reduce risk and vulnerability, or accommodate growth. And you're not going to see a prioritization in this list, because these are the projects that we think need to happen to meet those objectives. But when we look at prioritizing between water, wastewater, and stormwater, typically large diameter water mains are the most critical things for the utility, so those will be ranked high, followed by wastewater, and then drainage. Drainage is kind of that third service that unfortunately has been pushed in the past because it's not critical until it rains. And so you see that happening in recent weeks, but obviously in past years when we have flood events, if the stormwater system is not upgraded, then we're going to have flooding throughout the city. And so that is something that has been deferred in the past, and if we continue to defer that, we'll still be at high risk of flooding in the future.
So the list is kind of all P1s is what you're saying?
Through the chair, yeah, I would say it's P1s to ensure that we're going to have a reliable water, wastewater service. And so if you look at something like wastewater infrastructure renewal, that is the program where we renew our wastewater linear system or our collection pipes. And within that project or that program, we prioritize the most critical infrastructure. So we're not relining every wastewater pipe. We don't have the capacity, financial capacity to do that. We're focusing on the high risk projects. So if you look at McCarthy right now, that's our high risk wastewater pipes, and we're working on that kind of infrastructure. And we know that we're going to have some failures on our small diameter water wastewater mains, but that's generally acceptable risk.
So the next question I have pertaining to the projects and the P1s, fully recognize that a lot of this is a high priority. Putting all this together until 2020 or 2031, is there a projection that we won't have to invest so much in capital if we do it now? So we will put the capital in place right now, so we are putting new systems in the ground and wherever the systems are. And then we would see perhaps a decrease in capital spend and maybe a ramp up in just regular operational. Or inversely, if we're putting all this capital in, would we see a decrease in the overall operation and maintenance costs?
Through the chair. So when we look at our long-term utility model, we're seeing some significant capital investments now. Part of that is to take care of our existing system, but part of it is also to increase the level of service. So we're trying to ensure we don't have wastewater bypasses or reduce the risk of that happening, and wastewater backups in homes, and also the drainage projects. But if we just consider renewal work, yes, we are investing now so we can reduce the risk now and reduce the unexpected failures in the future. So obviously when something fails in the future, it's a huge cost to react to that and to fix that immediately or as soon as possible. It's not an option to not repair pipes when they fail. So if we can reduce the breakage rate, whether it's at our water system or our wastewater system, we would expect the operating costs to stabilize over the long term.
With your 25-year plan, your model right now, would this be a further projection of what we're going to see then? Because we do have a big city and we have a lot of aged infrastructure. I don't see the aged infrastructure ever going away unless we replace it all, and then it will go away. So what does that whole 25-year plan look like for replacing? Because right now we're doing pieces every year for the next 5 years, but 5 years is going to be another segment. So is this going to be a norm for an elevated rate, or is this going to be just kind of a blip and then kind of level off a little bit? And this pertains right into that reserve fund. Do we have adequate reserve funds for 5 years and beyond?
Through the chair. So right now we're looking at I'll call it the 6% or so rate increase for the next few years, and we do see that leveling off more in line with inflation. So we'll say 2 to 4%, but that really depends on the level of service that we're looking to achieve, primarily on our wastewater and our stormwater system. And so if we wanted to either not to reduce that risk from a flooding perspective or accept the current risk, then that could drop further.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Zakidniak, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. I do have a variety of questions. Excuse me. My first one is, so as mentioned, our projected utility rate increase is currently 7.82%. Can you equate that to dollars per month?
Who would like to take that one? Mr. Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. We're just quickly looking this up. Sorry, through the chair, maybe we'll go to the next question,
Yeah.
Councillor, and then we'll get that number for you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there, I don't know if you'll have to look this up too, but does anyone have handy the last year's utility rate increase? That's another thing I'm wondering.
Mr. Doney, go ahead.
Through the chair, in 2025, it was 5.82%.
5.82%. Thank you. And then while we wait for the dollars per month, what I want to know is, because I know this is quite different from our operating budget. This was perhaps touched on a bit, but I'm wondering about the opportunity for a reduction to the utility rate. Of course, we have the ability to do that, but what would be the impact and how would administration handle a request to reduce the utility rate for the 2026 budget?
Mr. Doney, go ahead.
Through the chair. So as mentioned at the opening, there's kind of 3 different levers that we can pull. And so one is capital plan, one is the utility rate and debt. And so if we were to reduce the utility rate, what we would be doing is reducing the capital plan. Of course, we show the picture of the reserve, and so one option is just allow that reserve to drop a little bit lower, which wouldn't be our recommendation. If we had to reduce the utility rate, we would look at deferring the capital plan. So we would look at deferring likely small diameter water mains, as that's the lowest risk within the overall utility system, and so we'd have more water main breaks, particularly on our AC water mains.
Right. And so this, I'm going to have some questions about this, but so if you reduce the amount of the small diameter water mains, though, like you said, there's more breaks. Do we calculate the cost of repairing water main breaks throughout the year to determine if that cost exceeds what, maybe I'll ask this in a better way. So scratch that. I'm going to back up a bit. And so My understanding is that the most of our breaks currently are in these, you said, AC water lines, right? So that stands for asbestos cement water lines. Those are our highest amount of breakages. So that's my understanding. If you can please confirm that and why that's the case.
Through the chair, that is correct. And so our small diameter AC water mains are susceptible to break in our clay soils. And so as the clay soil expands and contracts, it puts strain and stress on the cement water main, and they do break at a very high rate compared to the standards. Just for some context, this year we've had so far about 145 water main breaks. Our 5-year average is around 214 water main breaks. And so we're definitely lower than our 5-year average and our 10-year average. And that's because we've been investing in our small diameter water main renewal project, whether that's through relining or replacement. However, we do have still a lot of water main breaks compared to other cities.
And so it's my understanding that, like, so because of the cement, this is like a more rigid form of water pipe than used like otherwise. But when we replace it, we now use like a PVC pipe or something along those lines. Is that accurate? Which is more flexible?
Through the chair, that's correct. So, a large part of our water distribution system is AC water mains, which is a cement-based water main, and it's not flexible, and so our clay soils cause that to break. Now we would replace it with a PVC plastic pipe, and there's much more flexibility in that pipe, or we'd reline it, and those have a much greater ability to flex within the soil.
And so the question I was trying to get at earlier is, have we calculated how much money we spend each year on these repairs when we do have water main breaks? Do we have that number?
Through the chair, yes, we have an estimate. So every time the water main breaks, it's somewhere in that $15,000 to $20,000 to mobilize a crew, dig, do the replacement, repair the road work. And so based on our 5-year average, it's about $4 million a year we spend on water main breaks.
Wow, okay. Now, and so that also disrupts our infrastructure planning, because obviously when we have a water main break, that's an unplanned expense and time. And so does that cause delays in the amount of regular work that we're able to get done in a season because of the water main breaks? Or do we just plan that we will have a certain amount of these water main breaks each season?
Through the chair, so we are staffed up and plan for a certain number of water main breaks every year. The number of breaks really depend on how wet or dry the season is, and so we definitely have spikes on some particular years. And when we have more water main breaks than we can get to, they run longer, and so it takes us longer to get to them. We also have the ability to call in contractors if need be to assist. Of course, when a water main break happens, there's huge disruptions to the public, but also to our planned work. And so if it's on a location, it does have an impact on the road and on some of the integrated work. And also it can mean that water could be out for a block of home, or you need to have a drinking water advisory in place to make sure that water is safe until the pipe can be repaired and replaced if needed.
And those costs of how much per break, does that include all the costs, including like when we have a water main break and we can't repair it quickly, we have water that's just continuously running? Do we calculate the costs, for example, of the water that is, that just gets wasted and then needs to go back through like our whole water treatment system?
Through the chair, at a high level, we do incorporate those costs. Of course, there's lots of variables there depending on the size of the break and how long it runs. But yes, that's determined in our overall analysis.
You have about 30 seconds left, Councillor.
Okay. Okay, give me 1 sec then. What is our current timeline, excuse me, for replacement? I think our timeline, we have that we were either reline or replace all of these pipes that are susceptible to breakage, so AC water pipes, in a period, I think it's a 50-year timeline, or it was when it was made. What is our current projection for when that work will be completed?
Through the chair, so we have estimated, 500 kilometers of small diameter water mains that are susceptible to breaking, but it's not all 500 kilometers. It really is dependent on the location and how they were put in the ground back when they were installed. But if we needed to replace all of them, right now we're doing between 7 to 9 kilometers a year, and so that's how you can work out around a 50-year replacement life cycle on those water mains.
Okay, so I just have one more question. Hopefully I have time for this.
Yep.
Have we done any analysis about whether it's more cost effective with the costs, you know, $4 million a year or whatever, to expedite our timeline, or whether we still feel it is most cost effective to follow through on the original 50-year timeline? So I'm just talking about the cost benefit analysis.
Through the chair, so for our water master plan, we did quite a bit of work trying to determine what is an optimal, and we call it break rate per kilometer. And so it's not necessarily more cost effective to replace it because yes, 4 million sounds like a lot, but obviously it's very expensive to replace water mains. And so what we worked towards was trying to get to an optimal break rate. And if we were to move in that direction, we'd want to be doing about 10 to 12 kilometers of small diameter water mains, whereas right now we're doing 7 to 9. So there's definitely a desire or a need to move in that direction. Of course, small water mains are our lowest risk, and so when I talk about balancing risk with affordability, that's why we're at where we're at right now. But of course, with water main renewal, you want to integrate that with your road work, and so if we're going to increase our water main renewal, you also want to consider increasing your road budgets to align those two services.
Okay, so can I ask if there's a question to the, answer to the question I had asked earlier, which was amount per month?
You've got enough to do one more, yeah.
Yeah, just wondering if there's an update on that.
Go ahead, Mr. Anderson, yep.
Thank you through the chair. Thanks for the patience, Councillor. It's roughly $14 per month for the average household for next year, and then $19 per month for 2027.
Okay, thank you very much. Through the chair.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Burton, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair, for the report. I'm going to be going to Appendix C on page 16 of the councillor's package here. And in particular, I'm looking at the line item intermunicipal charges. And it says note 2, intermunicipal charges include concrete and pavement cuts, fleet, and other associated costs. So I'm seeing from 2024, 2.6 million up to 4.2, then 4.8 for 26, and a continued 4.8 for 27. Now, I'd like to understand a couple things here. Just to understand the reason for the increases, and is this the actual cut to do repairs, or is this to also include the repairs, so the cuts after the repairs have been done? Residents in my ward have been waiting 1, 2, and even 3 years, and there's a frustration in the ward about the repairs to these, and people consider them tripping and walking hazards, and very much is on the mind of many residents of Ward 4.
Mr. Doney, go ahead.
Through the chair, we've also heard concerns about our cuts program throughout the city. And so what this is when a water main breaks, like I just talked about, or a sewer needs to be dug, or a connection needs to be replaced, we dig, and we call that a cut, or a cuts program. So this is not the cost to do the digging, this is the cost to repair the surface work. So the utility pays for that, because the reason we've dug is because we had to get access to an underground pipe. So just to give a bit more information, at the end of 2025, based on what we're projecting, we're projecting around 550 locations are going to be what we call in a backlog situation. So as you mentioned, Councillor Burton, some of those will be in Ward 4, and that is a concern. This increased cost in 2026 is moving us to an objective of, at the end of 2026, having 0 in a backlog. So we have a lot of work planned in 2026 to get caught up on the cuts program, and the funding you're seeing there is request to move in that direction.
Thank you. Through the chair, now I'm just going to ask if this is in order there through the chair. I've been doing my reading and understanding of various things we had, and today's the last session to do additional inquiries. And it's not related really to utilities, but I was going to see if I could put a motion forward to ask to do some research for December. Is there any duplication of roles and responsibilities between the city manager's office, in other departments that could be reduced or consolidated. And that's just simply a question to add to the motions that do go up, and I'm looking for your ruling.
So I think, I know where you're going with the motion there, just speaking with the clerk, it is pretty far off topic from the utility budget itself. It would likely be more appropriate to bring it as a separate motion specifically for that, just because it is not related to the utility budget. But yeah, I think it's an indication to admin to highlight that may be something that's coming.
But this is my only chance to speak here, since we are in council, not exec, and am I able to do that at the end, or how do I do that?
So yeah, that's something you could bring forward at budget time, like when we go to budget, there'd be another opportunity to bring it at that time.
In December?
Yeah.
But not now, too.
No, not as a referral motion for information right now, because that would have had to be brought up to be appropriate at the topic for the topic of the day when we were talking about those
After we're doing
areas.
some more work and research. and
Yeah,
stuff.
so, but there would be an opportunity in December, would be the next best opportunity for
I
that.
might put them on notice.
Okay, no, very good. Okay, so you can carry on with further questions, Councilor.
No, that is good for me.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councilor Sickley, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Let me just grab my notes here. I don't know if this requires an amendment, but I'd like to see the historical utility mill rates over the past 10 years. I know we made some changes. Is that possible?
Mr. Doney, go ahead.
Through the chair, I've got them here, so I'll just read them out. From 2011 to 2013, it was a 9% utility rate increase. 2014 and 2015 were an 8% increase each year. 2016, 5%. 2017, 4%. 2018, 2%. 2019 and 2020 were each 3%. 2021 was 3%. 2022 was 5%. 2023 was 4.5%. 2024 was 3% on the fixed and 4% on the variable, and 2025 was 5.82%.
Thank you. And was that for this, are we comparing the exact same thing every year for 10 years, or was there something new added in there?
It's generally the same thing. In 2022, there was a dedicated 2% for the lead service connection management program, but still part of the utility. And then starting in 2025, there was the 1.82 for the intensification levy, but it's still part of the utility. So.
Thank you for that. Second question. Also don't know if I need an amendment for this through you, Mayor, is to provide the detailed results of that 2021 tax and utility affordability engagement study that I was speaking about earlier with Jim. It looks pretty good. There's 17 questions, and I can see the data in openregina.ca, but I don't have the numbers, legend for the numbers, so I don't know what those answers are. Could we get that?
Mr. Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Great question, Councillor. I would suggest or recommend that we add it to the list, and then we can get that. I don't have it.
Okay, so we can do that, and we'll just make sure we get and that's the terminology. Do we have the terminology?
Yeah, that's what it's called. So provide the detailed results of the 2021 tax and utility affordability engagement.
Perfect. Okay, give us a second. We'll get that written up here, and then I'll look for a seconder so we can get the referral started. Just give us 1 second.
And the reason I think it would be useful is 2,900 people replied. I mean, we're getting 300s and 400s at best with some of our surveys. This one was pretty well replied to. So it'd be good to see what people were thinking about in 2021.
Uncertainty kills you. Doesn't help out it on a Friday. I don't know what it is. Just, you know.
Sure, let's take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back at 2:08.
your seats.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order, and I'll just get Councillor Sickles to take a look at the top here. Pretty, I think it's pretty succinct. Looks
Perfect.
good. Okay, I'll just look for a seconder for the referral. Councillor Bezo, thank you. Okay, with that, I'll go back to you, Councillor Sickles, for any further questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just a couple more. So this question is about debt, which is one of the three levers we're talking about that we have. If the debt effects of the water expansion project and the Buffalo Pound upgrades, plus all the infrastructure upgrades needed, such as what we heard about, replacement and relining of asbestos cement water supply pipes, and replacement of 100-plus-year-old sewer pipes to allow for city growth, were all well known by previous councils. Why were competing capital-intensive projects approved by previous councils that also need debt financing? Is this good governance?
Mr. Nickel, go ahead.
Thank you. The simple answer, Councillor Sickles, is that those decisions are the complete prerogative of council of the day. So the council of the day could choose to accelerate projects, slow them down if they wanted, keep the mill rate or the utility rate high, as it was, Mr. Doney mentioned, a couple of years of 9% and 8%.
Yeah.
Councils of the day at the time had to balance a lot of things, whether it be affordability, the reaction of the public, because when you factor in a utility rate increase on top of mill rate increases, then we had COVID. So again, I'm not defending anybody's decision. I'm not castigating anybody's decisions. Those were prerogatives of council, and they made those decisions at the time based on what the council at the time felt was the best investment for that time period.
Okay, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus either, or offend anybody, but spending is spending, math is math, and there's only so much we can do without bankrupting our community. And yeah, 5% here, 8% here doesn't seem like much, but it's additive. So I campaigned on the concept we need to prioritize smart spending. I'd like to see some. I'll move on to my final question. As an economic lever, for example, is it possible to pause the fluoridation project to save some money in the short term and lighten the load on our residents?
Mr. Doney, go ahead.
Through the chair, so council has approved 2.25 million in previous budgets, and so it's in our carry forward right now. That's why you see it there. So if council chose to not do that, that 2.25 could go back to the utility reserve, and we would not have fluoride in our drinking water. Of course, that was debated back in May or so, and right now we're projected to have that. Buffalo Pound will install the infrastructure for that and have it in place, I think late 2026 or early 2027 is their current plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rasevich, go ahead.
Through the chair, I guess when I look at utilities, I mean, or when I look at our budget coming up, I look at there's wants and needs. And this is something where utilities, you know, we kind of need it, you know. And I guess like Councillor Sickles mentioned, you know, past, I guess, councils, sometimes they tried to hold back, spend more, spend less. So we sit here on our shoulders, I guess, having to make some decisions. You know, and I hear $14 a month. Is that right? $14 a month with the increase for this utility? Okay.
Mr. Anderson, go ahead.
Through the chair, that is correct, Councillor. For 2026, this would be a $14 a month increase for the average household.
Yeah, and then in 2027, it would be, what are we projecting?
Approximately $19 per month.
So
Sorry,
we're
through
going
the chair.
14 a month, and then we're going to go 19 a month. And again, I know some of these are needs, but that's where as council, we got to start looking at other things, like Councillor Sickles just mentioned. You know, hey, $2.25 million means something, you know, whether it's fluoride and delaying certain things. I mean, I think we have to make some we got to look back and make some decisions here. And I guess the question I have is related to Councillor Burton, because I was looking at that as well in terms of the cuts, like municipal. So like, I see how it's kind of gone up from 2024, like, you know, with wastewater and water, like basically, you know, 2.6 in 2024 and water was 3.2, and then in 2026 we're going up to 4.8 and water's up to 5.4. So are we anticipating in 2027, because we're catching up, that number is going to drop significantly?
Mr. Anderson, go ahead.
Through the chair, so the 2027 number is actually on the same page there, so you can see.
Oh,
So for wastewater, it's remaining the same as our
gonna-
forecast.
it's going to remain the same. I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's for
okay.
so wastewater will stay the same.
Yeah.
Okay, and then for water, I don't have it in front of me. Is that going to stay the same? I just had it written down.
Yes, through the chair, yes, it'll remain the same as well.
Really? I thought with Mr. Doney, when you were talking, I thought I heard you say we were kind of going to be caught up.
Mr. Doney, go ahead.
Through the chair. So what I was referring to was the cuts program, and so that's a small portion of the overall water, wastewater, stormwater operating budget. But by the end of 2026, we're looking to not have a backlog, but of course, every day and every year we have cuts that happen, and so we're looking to get caught up and then maintain that going forward into the future.
Huh. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. And I guess, like, again, I was talking with Councillor Bazo. I know we have 81 items. There's 81 items on this list. And I know fluoride's one of the 81. But I'm just saying, like, out of that 81, and I know he mentioned about ranking, but there have to be some that we can prioritize more than others, you know, and I know eventually they all got to get done, but is that possible that we can do some of that? You know, because it's hard for me to know. I'm not an expert in all these large pipes, small pipes, et cetera, but there must be some prioritization.
Go ahead, Mr. Doney.
Through the chair, absolutely, there's prioritization that we have, and it's based on risk. And so, as an example, upgrading our stormwater system to handle wet weather events or a major rainstorm is probably one of the lower priorities in the utility. Not saying it's not important, but it doesn't rain every day. And so that's the conversation that's happened in the past, where council has chosen to either accelerate or slow down our stormwater upgrades. And so those projects are things like behind Home Depot, we dig a detention pond so that the underpass doesn't flood. We put in large diameter pipes so that the rainwater doesn't get into our wastewater system and then back up and into your home. So those are lower priority on the overall priority scale of the utility. And so if council wanted to have a lower utility rate, one option would be to delay stormwater upgrades.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, is that possible to get? I mean, would that be something that would help us make some decisions if we had some sort of prioritization of these 81 items that are listed? I'm wondering if that's something maybe we could put up there.
Yeah, I'll just
like
ask
a menu?
Mr. Nickel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So with respect to your question, Councillor Rasevich, Curtis and his staff essentially prioritize, as you've heard, based on risk. And if I'm looking at the table of Appendix H, as you're referring to, the money for 2026 is $115.2 million. That's what the cost is that's shown in those 3 pages of the appendix for the proposed projects. If council in its wisdom says, Mr. Doney, we're going to give you $100 million, then he's going to have to go through that list with his engineers and planners and literally try to figure out, in his best professional opinion, where the least risk is. Because as he's said many times, these are predicated and based on the amount of risk that it poses, and to that extent, the risk that the public and council is willing to bear. So again, it is a decision to make. If you provide $100 million instead of 115, there's $15 million you're not spending, but what is the commensurate risk associated with that?
So, yeah, okay. Okay. No, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I had a couple questions on the water mains as well. Do we know the impact of winter on the cost of when we have a breakage, even compared to summer or winter breakage, and that reactive cost, or an idea of that? Mr. Doney, go ahead.
Through the chair, I don't have it quantified as far as the increased cost. It is definitely more costly, and so I'll just walk through kind of the process and just to give you an idea. So in the wintertime, obviously it freezes, and so we have to saw cut through the pavement and through the soils, and so you'll see this very large saw on the back of a tractor, and that cuts down into the pavement. So that is work that doesn't happen in the summertime. You know, just off the top of my head, I would estimate probably an increase of 25 to 30% increased costs in the wintertime versus the summertime, but I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Okay, thank you. And then just, I guess, to build on that, so you'd mentioned, I think, 550 locations booked for 2026 to get that backlog caught up. And this can be a referral if it makes sense. Just wondering if what the risk would be associated with doing that over the course of 2 years, knowing that we may see some additional pop up. But just your thoughts on, you know, the cost impact, and if it's something that, you know, maybe I should put up there as a referral, I can do that, but just your kind of initial thoughts.
Through the chair. And so that number that I was referring to, so that's our cuts, and so that's the restoration work of the sidewalk or the pavement. And so the risk of slowing that down, you know, there's not much risk to the utility. The risk is just the impact to accessibility and to residents that are in the area. So from a true utility perspective, the water will keep flowing and the wastewater will work, but there's more of an inconvenience factor of those cuts taking longer to repair.
Okay, no, that answers that question. I think that was the main two that I had. So I will go to Councillor Turnbull. Go ahead.
Hello. Thank you to the chair. I just had some questions, maybe assumptions that you can help me with. So when a pipe breaks, that's the most expensive thing that could possibly happen versus repairing it or doing maintenance, correct?
Through the chair, yeah, in general, an emergency break or a pipe failure is reactive, and so that is much more expensive than proactively repairing it. Yeah.
So doing preventative maintenance is actually way more of an operational savings than waiting till things get to the dire and also inconveniencing our citizens and whatnot.
Through the chair, absolutely, and I'll give you a bit of information. So when we're renewing our wastewater system, our wastewater pipes, it costs about a third to reline a small diameter wastewater pipe versus replacing it. So about 33% of the cost if we can proactively reline it versus waiting until it collapses and have to go and dig the road up.
Yeah. Thank you for that information. Well, I guess. And then when a pipe does break because we haven't taken care of it, does it affect the person's home? Like, does water get into it? Do we have higher water costs leaking into place? What is the domino effect of a pipe breaking?
Through the chair, yeah. So if we're talking about drinking water, you know, when we have a water main break, there's a huge impact to the surrounding infrastructure and to the road and potentially the home. So water will infiltrate throughout the road, cause damage to the road. It may get into people's homes depending on the direction of travel, and residents may not have water, and so we have temporary water tankers that we take out to the streets to put out there for 24 or 48 hours, however long it takes us to repair that water main break. So there's a significant impact to residents and to the infrastructure.
Yeah. And then, do we have any information on how many service requests and things or complaints are based off of broken pipes and things? Is that one of our most common complaints? And even when one of my common complaints as a councillor is those cuts and things after the fact. So the fix-up of the breaks is one of my most common complaints from my citizens. Is that pretty common, or just?
Yeah, through the chair. So, you know, when there's a water main break, we get obviously a flurry of calls because there's some fear as far as what's happening, when it's going to be fixed, particularly if it's impacting property or the water doesn't come out when you turn the tap on. But I would agree that probably more calls are on the cuts program, and so why it's taking so long to fix this. Some residents would expect that that's going to be done within the week, and it's much longer than that. It can be years, as we just talked about. So that's why we put forward some funding to try to reduce that timeline and increase that level of service.
And we wouldn't even need the cuts program if there weren't all these broken pipes all the time, correct?
Through the chair, very good observation, yes. So if you can invest in the underground pipes before they break, then we aren't cutting into the road, and we don't need that funding longer term.
And again, with the cuts program, when you break something, like when you break a bone, you never really get it put back together again correctly. So when the cuts program happens and their lawns or driveways are there's usually, I get a flurry of complaints about that process, all because of the broken pipe from being the deferred maintenance. So to me, there's just this huge domino effect of costs from a broken pipe. Would you agree to that?
Through the chair, I would agree. Fixing the pipe is the first step, and then there's many other steps after that, and has an impact on many different infrastructure in the surrounding area, including roads and sidewalks.
And then I did want to ask about the integration, which I know the city's been doing a great job of integrating with when we do our road repairs and things with the pipes and doing it all at one time for efficiency. So in the larger, bigger picture, does this plan for capital projects relate back to our other plans for other projects in the city, and are they actually kind of efficiency driven?
Through the chair, yes, and so the plans are definitely getting more and more aligned, and so when we're replacing a water main or wastewater main, we're looking to integrate that with the road and potentially rebuild the road if we're talking about a residential road. If we're just going to reline underground infrastructure, then there's not as much of an impact on the road infrastructure, but the programs are definitely getting more and more aligned and integrated. You look at large projects like 11th Avenue and Dewdney Avenue, we're going right down to the bottom and replacing 100-year-old pipes, so we're not going back there in the future. And so that is one risk. If you increase funding in one area and not the other, that integration could suffer in the future.
And I guess maybe my referral, and you can help me with this, is there some sort of scan we can do with other towns or cities of how our pipes are deferred maintenance compared to other places? Could we do like a scan to that to see how deferred we are compared to some of other people, and the age of our pipes and our quality of pipes to our comparatives?
Through the chair, I'm going to start, and then I'll ask Ms. Sigwin if she's got any more details that she could provide. But something we used to be involved with was water, wastewater national benchmarking, and that collects a whole bunch of information that we can compare how our utility is to others. And we pulled away from that program in the past years, but it's something we're looking at getting back involved with, and it's really, really useful, and we can compare our results to others. So that's a future thing that we're looking to do. I'll just ask Ms. Sigwin if she has any, no, not getting any head nod there. So I think it's something that it's a takeaway. It's not a quick answer. Because the information is really challenging to collect from other cities, but you need to be part of these groups to really work together and make sure you're comparing apples to apples. So it's a longer term takeaway for us.
So just to be clear, it wouldn't be something that you'd be able to pull together before budget as a part of these referrals that we're trying to get before then?
Through the chair, no, not for this topic.
Pipes and water and deferred maintenance, it's not really somewhere where, like, it costs us more in the long run. I'm interested to see where this goes, but our water and our pipes are so important, and we talk about the deferred maintenance, and you don't really solve the problem of deferred maintenance by continuing to do the pattern that got you there. You don't solve deferred maintenance by deferring maintenance. We do have a holistic picture to look at things, but at some point we have to look at the thing and say what is best for our citizens, and we do have a lot of hard choices in front of us. But I do know the city has issues with budget and money, and we're all here together working on it to find a solution, but we do have to acknowledge that the thinking that got us here isn't going to be the same thinking that is going to take us out of here.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Flores, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you for the report, and I think we had some really great insights on the reason for a lot of the costs here. But I'm thinking about the perception during budget, especially during this new process for residents, and what messages might instill some fear about increases. So for this particular one, we've talked about the negative effect of deferred maintenance and what that costs in the future. So if there's one key message residents should take away about why their utility bills might be going up, what would it be? Is it mostly about paying for today's costs, or is it investing to prevent problems tomorrow?
Mr. Doney, go ahead.
Through the chair, so I think that's something we can definitely work on for December to make sure comms and others are supportive of it. But from my perspective, I would say we're really investing in our critical infrastructure to reduce the risk of failure. And so we're looking to maintain our level of service, and we want to ensure our water, wastewater, and stormwater system is there for the future.
Thank you. And just curious, because earlier you, when Councillor Sickley's asked the kind of like the 10-year trends of what the increases were, when you mentioned those, I noticed that we had the increase going down quite a bit in the past few years. So would it be safe to assume that if we continue to do that, we're just going to keep adding those costs to future projects to the point that some of them might be catastrophic in a sense?
Through the chair, I think that's a good analogy or good summary, is that we have to invest in infrastructure, whether we do it today or tomorrow. It needs to be repaired. And so if we're going to ensure reliable water, wastewater, stormwater service, it's just a matter of time before they fail if we don't invest in them and replace them now.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further questions. Anybody who hasn't spoken yet, if there's any questions? Okay, so seeing none, thank you everybody again from administration for pulling all this together. And because we do have a referral motion on the board, this will go straight to a vote for that referral motion. So once we're ready, I'll ask the clerk to start the vote. Councillor Zakidniak, can I get your verbal vote, please?
In favor.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the motion is carried unanimously with Councillor Zakidniak voting verbally in favor, with all members present.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Councillor Bezo? And a seconder? Councillor Sickleys? Any opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you, everybody.